Broadway's hottest tickets are right here each and every week on The Broadway Show. I'm Tamsen Fadal. Glad to have you with us.
New York, I'm already talking the talk.
Now get ready to fall in love with New York City all over again. Let's talk Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York.
Are you ready for me in New York?
I sat down with one of the stars of Two Strangers, Christiani Pitts. Well, it's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
It's been a bit.
So great to see you. Yeah, it's been a minute.
But you've been having a good time, right?
Oh, yeah. Most fun I've ever had on stage.
Really? Mm-hmm. Talk about the show. First, the title of the show, Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York, always makes me kind of, smile when I say it. Talk to me about, if somebody hasn't seen it, what surprises them and what they should be prepared for.
I think people leave surprised about just how hard they laughed and like the release that they had. And the show is described as like a rom-com, which I think is sweet to get people there, but it's a little misleading because it's like so much more than that. It explores like deeper levels of people's humanity, of the choices that these people are making, and it's really funny. And I think people leave the show feeling like, I did not know I was gonna laugh that hard. I thought I was gonna have the cutesy romantic experience, but it's not that. It's like, it's silly, it's serious at the same time. I think people are surprised by that like gut reaction.
Follow my stride, just follow my stride. I'm Bonnie, you're Clyde, you're Bonnie, you're Clyde.
When you first heard about it, you first came across your desk or your computer or your email, what did you think upon reading it?
I loved it. And I only read the first half and I didn't know that. I thought I finished the script. And so I read it on the plane on my way to New York for the audition for it. And I finished the script.
Wait, you read it on the plane on the way to the audition?
Mm-hmm. Well, the audition was like 2 days later, but I live in Georgia.
Oh my
so I
gosh.
had to fly to New York.
You had that little amount, I didn't even know that you did it that fast of a turnaround?
Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this is good. And in my director meeting, he's talking about the script and I'm like, and I love the open-ended nature. Like, I love how it ends and we don't really know. And he was like, well, no, we do know. It was so good that I only finished half of it and was like, this is one of the best things I've ever read. It's just it's so fast and smart and like witty. So when I read the first half, I was hooked.
Yeah, it's just the two of you? Is that right?
The two of us, yeah.
So what is that like? I mean, that is a close relationship and you're barely leaving the stage.
You know, it is only the two of us, but we also have the band on stage, which is awesome because we can work with them, laugh with them. There's a moment in the show where I'm referencing a character who's not there, but our music director pretends to be the character sometimes. So we have like little moments like that. And also the other characters in the show who you don't see are so fleshed out that you feel their presence, you feel their energy. People leave the show having really interesting reactions to the people who aren't even there, which I think is credit to the writers.
That says a lot.
Yeah, so it is just us two, but the world feels a lot bigger than that.
How much cake have you had since November, or when were you in Boston? You were in Boston when?
Oh, we were in Boston over the summer. I've had more cake than I can even talk about. But I eat it every time.
You do?
You think at some point you'd be like, I think I've had enough. I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna eat the cake.
Who provides the cake?
Magnolia provides our cakes.
Well, then you can't not eat it.
It's so good. I think we have we're lucky, I think, to have like a partnership with them. So I've had my fair share of red velvet, and I'm down to eat any of the cakes that they provide. I'm gonna taste it.
Magnolia Bakery here, cupcakes especially, but great. What else do you have going on? I hear you're working on something else.
Yeah, well, I'm a new mom, so I'm working on trying to be.
How has that been?
It's awesome.
Yeah?
It is so good. She's 3. She's really into the change of New York because we were in Georgia for a while. She's really happy, I think, to see me doing what I love to do because she sings the songs from the show.
Aww.
She's trying to take my job. So that's been taking majority of my time. I'm writing. I have a series that I'm trying to develop that is the story of my mom and dad's meeting. And my dad was an upcoming journalist. My mom was a narcotics cop in 1980s Miami. So I'm trying to develop that story and also at the same time just give myself grace because it's a lot.
Broadway stays as gold as ever. It's The Outsiders, the Tony-winning best musical like nothing you've seen before. Let's go ahead and send it out to Paul Wontorek.
That's right, Tamsen. In The Outsiders, the tension between the Greasers and the Socs culminates in an explosive onstage rumble. We headed into the rehearsal room to find out how the creative team pulled off this theatrical wonder.
2, 3, up, 4.
What's it like building the Rumble?
Fight choreography for me, it's kind of like, if it's not just right, kind of takes you out. And if it's too good, for me, I'm like, how do they do that? And it takes me out even in that way. So when we were thinking about the Rumble, we were like, how do we not focus on, trying to trick the audience into making sure that it looks real, but focusing on the impact of the Rumble.
I mean, the way that Adam scripted the stage directions for this piece is he writes that the fists of the boys, they detonate into one another's flesh. And so when Jeff and I were first in the studio with Danya as well, trying to figure out, what is the vocabulary of this, we realized that sound could be a really important way in, and that we'd have to kind of create a score for the Rumble of sorts. The soundscape of the most chaotic part of the Rumble is just rain. And so with some clever sort of thunderclaps and other stop gaps that we call them, we've found a way to keep everyone in sync.
This Rumble, it's raw, it's dirty, it's chaotic. It's not quite dance, but it does move from a more naturalistic mode, and then hopefully, even without you quite noticing, as it ramps into a more expressionistic mode.
Because of the individuality and the sort of three-dimensionality of all of the performers on that stage, what we've tried to do in phase one, what we call phase one of the Rumble, is to craft very specific narratives between all of these characters. We almost describe it as kind of a Bosch-like painting, that if you zoom out and see the totality of the chaos happening in phase one, that is one experience, but you can also kind of zoom in and pay attention to any duet or trio and see a fully fleshed out, crafted fight. So that's the first part of the Rumble, and then as Jeff said, it develops into something more expressionistic and more stylistic and a little bit more heightened.
Have the two of you actually been up there in the mud, muddy, wet, with it thrown around with the guys? That's actually happened?
100%. We're still at a point in our careers where we can do everything we're asking the actors to do. And in fact, it's a big part of what gets everyone's buy-in, is that we're not asking you to do something that's dangerous, that we wouldn't do ourselves.
We're not sitting there in a chair and saying, hey, can you try that? Can you try that? No, our faces are in the cork. We've got mud all over us. We're wet with you, and it's a team effort. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
I think what's unique about the Rumble is that it has to be experienced in its totality. The way it's designed is that it moves from strict naturalism through to this very expressive theatrical vocabulary, and that ramp itself is what we feel makes the Rumble special.
You need to sit there in the audience. You need to feel the sound of the Rumble resonate in your chest. You need to see the sweat and the rain fly off the bodies. There's no substitute to being in that theater and having that experience.
The Broadway Show is back in just a sec. The Razzle Dazzle is alive and well. Chicago is going to celebrate 3 decades on Broadway in 2026. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway for us.
Let's go back in time. When you think about starting working on Chicago, what are the first thoughts that come to your head?
Well, when we first started working on Chicago, we knew we were doing it for encores. So everything was built around how it would land on a concert version. All the things that you would have approached that piece with were about streamlining it and finding the absolute essence of what the story was. And that became the challenge and the delight of working on the piece.
How do you describe the story if someone asks you?
I always look at it as a story of what we will do in order to become celebrities in this world. And that's the story. That's been the story. I think that was the story when Maureen Dallas Watkins wrote it originally, when it was turned into early movies at the time.
Based on true events, right?
That's right. She was a reporter for the Chicago Trib in 25, 26. And she followed the stories of Beulah Anand and Belva Gertner. And these two women were arrested in jail for having killed their lovers in very much the same way they do in Chicago. And they became sensational because they were so beautiful. And she wrote the stories about it, and people loved the stories, and they followed it. And she quit the newspaper business. She went to drama school. She wrote this play, and the play called Chicago, and it became a hit. But from that point on, that play, that story just kept continuing to come back. And in movies, there was a Ginger Rogers movie. And finally, when it came up in the late 60s to do an adaptation of it, there it was still that same story about people who will do anything to become a celebrity.
So there you are, you've got all of this source material, you have the play, you have the original work. How did you streamline it and make it, it's like an engine, it just goes so quickly.
Walter Bobby and Anne Reinking had a very clear idea of how they wanted it done, and it was to really reduce everything down to its essence. So you'll notice there are no props in the show, and there are no props in the script, so all the props disappeared from the original. There's no scenery in this show. There's no doors, there's no windows that come in, there's no flats that come on. All that was cut. In fact, there was a scene at one point where there was a scene in the second act where there's a poker game being played with Mama Morton and some of the murderesses. Well, it would require a table and chairs and cards. Cut. So what we were doing was finding ways to get down to the essence of what the story was, and if a speech was in 3 sentences or 3 lines, could you do it in 1? Could you do it in 1 word? So it was all about taking it down to its absolute essence. And in a lot of ways, that's what the staging did as well. They pushed everything right to the edge of the stage. Everything is in 1. Everything is right at the edge of the stage and right there with the audience.
This musical revival, I should say, is almost 30 years old. Why do you think it still hits? It still endures? And as we said, it's based on something that happened 100 years ago.
When the show opened in '96, it was interesting. You have to remember it was right at the time that O.J. Simpson trial was happening.
Right.
And there was a Kardashian in that mix. So remember, it was the beginning of what would become the idea of reality TV. There was the Unabomber, there were the Menendez trial that was going on.
Right.
All of these trials were there that were showing up what it would mean if you were, everybody was becoming a celebrity. The judges, the plaintiffs, the lawyers.
So many crimes of the century.
So many, but it became like something we were completely fascinated by.
Yeah.
And that idea, though, of people, those stories that we follow, the crimes that we follow, the sensational crimes that we follow, has become sort of a national diet. And they're fun, they're awful, they can be any number of things, but they're not going away. So,
and you can't look away.
You can't look away. That's it exactly. I remember when we were in rehearsals with Chicago initially, OJ was going down in the white Bronco. Everybody was watching it. It was such a blur of entertainment and crime and law and a trial. It was so blurred. And then when the show opened, everybody was not shocked to see how relevant it was, but suddenly the musical became the embodiment of so much of what we were experiencing culturally. It goes on and on and on, and we celebrate that. It's a crazy thing, but it is America, and that's showbiz.
Maybe Happy Ending is critically acclaimed, and it is totally original. It's got robots and a rom-com on a road trip. Everything you could ask of a Broadway musical. Here's Perry Sook with more.
All right, we are here in the calling room with Justin Scribner. We're sneaking up on showtime. There's a lot going on already. Just how does this show that is so extensively technical get started every day?
We have an incredible group of people, 19 different crew members, 3, sometimes 4 stage managers, and an amazing front of house team that all come about 90 minutes before the show to prepare. And our crew is made up of some really incredibly skilled technicians that handle I think we have 450 video tiles. Here You're able to see kind of each individual tile. The back wall is a different kind of video tile than is all around the proscenium, which we're giving away a little bit of inside scoop on how much video is in the show, but when the show starts, it takes place in an apartment, and you don't really have an idea that there's actually going to be a huge world around them, and we stay in their apartments for half an hour, 45 minutes, and the whole genius design of our designers put together a very small little musical with just 4 actors that then becomes a full stage kind of extravaganza that is made up of turntables and automated scenery that weighs more than 1 ton each, and these irises that move in and out, and the way that they've integrated lighting and video and our scenery is very intricate, which means we have to check every single aspect of it before the show starts every single day to make sure we're safe, and every single crew person has a lot on their plate, including the stage managers.
Yeah, how many calls are there, and how many unique types of calls? I mean, because obviously you have your standard lighting cue and mic up, mic down. There's shoots with magazines coming out. There's automation. There's lights lining the automation as it moves. There's fireflies flying out of things. How many types of calls do you have in the show?
Well, luckily, for the most part, everything that I'm calling is either a verbal call on headset or a cue that I'm cueing with a cue light. So I turn on the cue lights to warn people, and I turn them off to make things happen. There are cue lights built in backstage. On top of Oliver and Claire's unit, there's also cue lights out in the house. I am using my prompt book to cue people constantly for lighting, sound, video, automation, auto fly, auto deck, many different types. I think there are like 900 lighting events. There are the scenery moves 500 times. There are 500 moves of 38 different automated pieces. And there are, as you mentioned, a lot of fireflies, over 100 fireflies in the show, but I don't have to cue them because they're very well trained.
You've been with the show for a while. How did you balance the technical splendor with that truly passionate core?
The piece of this that is so I have such pride in is that it has been a collaborative process from the beginning. The reason why so many of us got into theater is it's a team sport. It's a collaborative art form that relies on all of us working with each other, and this will ultimately go down in my life as being one of my favorite pieces I've ever worked on. All of these monitors have different shots. For the most part, I keep this on our main front of house color shot so we can really be close to the action. And then we have shots in the basement that show us the pits and the pit lifts and the center lift upstage. We also have shots backstage so that as the show is coming together, I'm able to see that crew members are completing their job safely. And over here, I have an above shot downstage, an infrared shot so I can see when we go completely dark on stage, and a shot of the conductor. And here, this is what they call a PTZ camera, pan, tilt, zoom. And I am able to, like a video game, I have a joystick where I can zoom in on certain areas, and I've created presets so that I can just hit one button and it will go to different areas of the stage based on what I need to look at. In addition to maintaining the technical integrity of the show, I'm also a part of maintaining the artistic integrity. I'm giving notes to the actors in conversation with them and our associate director and our director every day to make sure that we're keeping a tight show, the pacing is great, and that the intention is there from the beginning of this like beautifully written show.
Do you feel, a heightened responsibility? You're not just making calls, you're, driving this massive tech ship with the heart at the center. Do you feel a heightened sense of responsibility?
Yes. There is a significant amount of responsibility on the shoulders of the person calling the show. I do feel like there are some very kind of close encounters in the show with safety. We have to be very attuned to the timing that we've set and what everyone expects to happen every day, but we also need to be able to deal with anything that could come up. And that's not something that you can actually teach, and you kind of have, as a stage manager, this extrasensory ability to become the calmest person in the building when there's an issue. And I really truly feel like many experiences have built me up for this particular moment, but I do not foresee any sort of technical issue being a stumbling block for us. We're going to be able to get through it. I trust the people in the building, and building that trust is like the most important part of this whole process.
That's all for now, but for tickets and more exclusive content, you can head over to Broadway.com. Until next time, I'm Tamsen Fadal, and this is The Broadway Show.